Welcome now to the weather portion of Ag Week. I don't have great news here if you've enjoyed the mild weather we've been experiencing the last week or so. It is back to cold weather, not only in the northern plains, but throughout much of the midsection of the country. Notice the pattern setting up here with the mild temperatures east. Well, the cold weather is going to start dropping southward again over the next couple of days, and it looks like it's going to kind of overspread much of the northern plains, maybe the central Great Plains. It's not going to be quite as cold as the cold weather we had earlier in January, but it is looking like it will be fairly cold. Let's take a look at the jet stream pattern. There sits the cold weather on Sunday, ready to start moving southward. Very mild weather throughout the eastern United States. And notice also along the now fairly far south branch of the polar jet stream, there's a pretty strong jet streak. Well, that's going to kick up into the Great Plains and upper Midwest, and it probably produce a pretty significant snowstorm for some part of the Midwest this week. We talked about that on the weather portion of Ag Week last week. Meanwhile, the cold weather will then follow that system, settling into the northern plains, and it looks fairly localized, and it doesn't look like it's going to be quite as cold as the one a couple of weeks ago. Also, northern plains has melted a lot of snow this past week, so that's going to cut into how cold it can get. Toward the end of the week, I think the coldest of the weather will shift. We're still in basically a strong El Nino pattern, so the southern branch of the jet will remain fairly strong, and the northern plains and great upper Midwest weather will likely tend to moderate a little bit, at least toward the end of the week, but I suspect the cold weather will come back. Here's a look at the actual weather pattern for this week. Fairly dry across the northern plains. The rainy weather looks like it will be all over northern California northward, but still southern California getting skunked. Meanwhile, Florida continues to be a lousy winter to vacation in Florida. It's been fairly stormy down there. And here's my expected snow track this week through the upper Midwest, maybe from Minneapolis, Des Moines, Madison, looking at some significant snow. Northern plains probably just cold and dry this week. The second week, I think the cold and fairly dry weather will expand. The rain along the west coast will limit itself to just the west coast regions. This area of dry weather and cool weather in the Great Plains looks fairly substantial. The Midwest snow will diminish. There'll be some Great Lakes lake effect snows, maybe one system in the Ohio Valley, but overall not a terribly wet second week of February. In fact, it looks overall generally just a little below average and dry. Nice rains throughout much of Brazil, especially the south, will help with things there. A few showers in Argentina, otherwise things looking fairly stable internationally. So the basic message, the cold weather will be back, but not as extreme as in January. Good chance for a snowstorm in the Midwest this week, and the overall pattern for February looking dry and about average on temps.